Turns out if you're gonna not have it, you probably need to not have it on the back-to-back versus the good team instead of the bad team. This is Locked On Nuggets. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moore, senior NBA writer for the Action Network, Nuggets insider for 104.3 The Fan in Denver. Solo show tonight, taking you into the weekend after the back-to-back losses by the Denver Nuggets, extending their losing streak to 3 games. We will get into today all sorts of stuff. We will get into what happened in the debacle on Thursday and why that happened. We'll get into the Valiant effort on Friday and how sometimes guys just play badly and sometimes guys play well, and getting them to kind of sync up is complicated. But first, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. All right, let's get into this. So, like I said, on today's show, we are going to quick show today. We're gonna breeze through the recap of the weekend or the Thursday Friday set and kind of like put that into context. Second segment, we'll talk about who played well, who didn't. I will say nice things about Facu Campazzo, so that's cool. And then in the third segment, we'll kind of look forward and takes. I want to get into some of the big picture stuff that's going on in the discussions about it. So let's start here. On Thursday, that's what you call a schedule loss that didn't happen in the schedule. It was just the Nuggets didn't have it. Okay. So Malone after the game, I thought he was going to go with, we act like we've beaten somebody. We haven't done a damn thing, blah, 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 all these kind of things. They came in here and kicked our ass. And I think he did drop it. They kicked our ass tonight. But Malone was pretty subdued post-game. Michael Malone post-game is a very good barometer of trying to determine exactly whether or not the Nuggets should have played better or not. If they did not give a requisite effort, Malone will absolutely go off. I thought it was very telling that afterwards Malone was like, unfortunately, this happens it's going to happen a few times in 82 games. Like, Malone was genuinely zen about it. Like, you could tell that Malone was like, we didn't have it. We just did not have it tonight. The most upset player from Thursday versus the Sixers was Will Barton, who was just like, I asked him, I was like, look, you're shorthanded. You got all these things, is like you're on 2 days rest, but was fatigue kind of a factor? And he was like, we can point to this, that, or the other, but we just didn't defend. We just got to defend better. I got to defend better. We just got to defend better. And he was right. In that game, the reason that I say that, like, they didn't have it, and the reason that this kind of matters is if you see something that happens game by game by game by game by game, like Aaron Gordon playing great perimeter defense and stonewalling guards and containing them on the perimeter. And then it doesn't happen versus a team with Tyrese Maxey and Seth Curry, who are both having terrific seasons and are really good players. And that Sixers team is really better than it looks without Embiid. If you see Aaron Gordon just not containing, if you see guys just not doing the stuff that they can do, if you see Nikola Jokic only score 3 points in the second half, it's less likely that it's something that is permanent about the Nuggets and more probably something that is transient about the Nuggets. It's that night. It's that they just didn't have it. Basketball is weird. There are nights when you just do not have it. And it's happened a lot. It happens to every single team. The Warriors will have nights where they just do not have it. The Lakers, when they were winning titles, had nights where they just did not have it. Even though the Warriors in the 73-win season, 9 times they lost. Not all of those were because the other team just played better or their tactical stuff. Like, a lot of it was just like, the Warriors didn't play well that night. And the Nuggets just played really badly in that game. So I'm not saying that it's good. And you can hold them to what I'm finding really interesting this season is what standard people are holding the Nuggets to, especially within the fan base. Like, the Nuggets are generally fine. They're 9-7 after the loss, after losing without Jokic to the Chicago Bulls, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Without without Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. and Zeke Naji, as well as Nikola Jokic. But if you're going to hold them to the standard of they don't get to have these Sixers games, then you're going to be disappointed. Like, you're just naturally going to be disappointed. They play too many games. It took me a long time to accept this, but the reality is that 82 games, you are going to get these. I don't know if you get them at 60 games. You might not. They might have enough time to like actually get amped up, and you would have fewer back-to-backs. Like, if you're the Nuggets and you know you got the Bulls coming in the next night, and you have this back-to-back set, and then you got this road trip looming where you're playing like 8 of the next 10 on the road or whatever, it's going to weigh on you. It just is. And so there's consequences to those things. So the Nuggets didn't play well on Thursday in blank. Like, I don't know. There's not much else to say about it. Jokic got hit somewhere on the wrist. Goes back to the locker room. Harrison Wynn, DMVR.com, says the Jokic went back to the locker room. After the game, neither he nor Michael Malone acknowledge it. They both say that Jokic went back to check on Malone. The fact they both said the exact same thing is, oh, okay, so PR told them to say this. There's no reason to think that Nikola's absence is going to be long-term. It might stretch into next week. Like, it's swelled, right? So they put the brace on, and they held him out on the back-to-back. Could be back on Monday. Could be back, by the Friday game versus the Bucks. Like, who knows? I would say that I would not expect him to be on multiple, like more than a week. That's like the word that we're getting. Okay. Now, I also have been told that like Michael Porter Jr. will probably getting an update soon, and that keeps not happening. So again, as I mentioned before with the training staff, who knows? But I'm not overly concerned about Jokic's absence long term. The Friday night performance was what I expected. Like, honestly, going into the Thursday game, I was kind of like, this is probably the letdown spot, right? And then they come back and they win the Bulls game on the back-to-back. And if they had Joker, they win that game. And if they had Michael Porter Jr., they win that game. If they had Zeke Naji, they probably win that game. They gave a great effort. They did a lot of things well. They fought. They battled. They hung. They were really up against it. And they had a pretty hostile home crowd, all things considered. A lot of Bulls fans there. But ultimately, they just didn't have the talent. You do have to have, like, I do believe that scheme and talent and motivation, I always say motivation is the biggest edge. The Nuggets had the motivation on Friday night, but the Bulls did too. They were mad about that loss to the Blazers that they suffered. They had a 19-point lead that they blew in Portland. They were mad too. And they came out and they played with enough of an edge. And I will say the most impressive thing about the Bulls in this game was the Nuggets hit them with a haymaker right out of the gate, and the Bulls took it and absorbed it and wore it down, and then took the lead out by the end of the quarter, and hung, right? They didn't get rattled by that first body blow. A lot of teams in altitude at the end of a West Coast road trip, they take that opening blow from the Nuggets and they're down on the mat, and that's it. I've seen that happen a lot. And this Bulls team was resilient and had shot makers, and they just stuck with it, which is a testament to the coaching staff and the players. And so they played pretty well. They played a really good game tonight. They were shorthanded too. They were not as shorthanded as the Nuggets. I will reject any sort of suggestion. If the Nuggets were without Nikola Jokic, they're without the most valuable player. But the Bulls were without their all-star starting center and a very important player, which is their small forward who's out for the season. So everybody's hurt. No excuses. That's what they say. Let's take a break. We're going to come back. I want to talk about some of the individual performances from the Thursday-Friday set and kind of what they mean going forward. And just celebrate some of the good and get into the bad and talk about who I think had good games and bad games, including Facu Campazzo. Yes, it's time to celebrate Facu a little bit. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I want to tell you about Prize Picks, the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator, and they offer all the superstar players as well as the bench players, recording only a handful of minutes. They offer any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interception thrown. Users that deposit and use promo code NBA, that's code NBA, get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. You pick 2 to 5 players and an over-under, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. PrizePicks is safe, and they offer fast withdrawals. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com and use promo code NBA, or go to your App Store and download the app today. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making this part of your day. Matt Moore breaking down A set of losses. The Nuggets have now lost 3 in a row for the first time this season. Tough break for them. Probably would have gotten off the snide tonight if it hadn't been for the Joker injury, but that's how it goes. I want to tell you, thank you for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen each and every day. We are free and we are available on all platforms. So let's talk about some of the players from this 2-game set. Will Barton and Jokic were absolutely phenomenal in the Thursday game, and nobody helped them. Zero. Zip. Nobody. Aaron Gordon in particular was terrible Thursday. So again, I've kind of talked about this. If we accept that fatigue is sometimes indecipherable and complex, and what I mean by that is, haven't you ever gotten up one day when you've actually gotten some sleep before and been like, I'm tired, I shouldn't be. Why am I tired? Has that never happened to you? Because it's happened to me a lot, right? And so the point I'm trying to make here is the Nuggets were tired Thursday and they should not have been. And that's a problem. Like, I don't know what the solution is, but all of their jumpers were short. They were hitting off of front iron. Their rotations were slow, which they haven't been this year. The defense looked like it was last year, where they were always a step slow and always out of rotation and always getting caught off the bounce. That happened all night. Even with Aaron Gordon and PJ Dozier got torched. Dozier honestly got torched in both games. He played bad defense the whole weekend. I have more thoughts on PJ. We'll get to in a second. So nobody played well, but Will Barton was sensational. Really dragged them in that first game and gave them a chance, to be at least competitive before they just couldn't do it. The problem again with that Sixers game, on top of the bench issues, is that the starters can only really get you 3 out of 4 good stints, right? So they can't put together 4 great stretches together. That's not reasonable for any starting lineup. Like usually your starting lineup is going to win. Like you want your lineup to win the minutes overall over the course of the 4 quarters, the starters, but they're usually not going to win all 4 stretches. They'll win, they might be +1 in the first quarter and then like a -3 in the second and then +2 in the third and a +1 in the fourth, right? And like then you've won your minutes. That's for like a normal, like slightly average team. That's what you're looking for. You're looking for your starters to win their minutes. That determines if your starters can't win their minutes, then you're going to be a lottery team. The Nuggets usually win their minutes, but the Nuggets starters, in part because they just are so shorthanded, just did not have enough to really get by. And so they just could not get anything in this stretch. This was a really rough back-to-back set. And that game in particular, they just got nothing. So then you get to Friday and Aaron Gordon puts together his best game as a Nugget. Like it was awesome to watch. Gordon attacked the rim mercilessly, drew fouls, drew contact. He was, driving to generate contact. He and Will Barton, and honestly, a little bit PJ Dozier. I think PJ Dozier's offensive game, the numbers were really bad on Friday, and I'm not debating that. Like, I'm not saying like actually PJ Dozier was a really good player with a 1 of 6 performance for 2 points. But I do think that when I watched him, he was at least aggressive and trying to attack and was drawing defenders and then kicking. And that's what you really want to see from PJ Dozier. Aaron Gordon, that was phenomenal. I think I figured out what the key is for Aaron Gordon's short game. So I keep wondering like why he misses all these like short, like half jumpers or hooks or like just little layups around the rim. In pregame warmups, he was shooting just basically short jumpers. Every time he used glass, it went in. Like almost every single time. He never bounced it off of, the back square, off the front of the iron and out. Like that's pretty common. Never happened. But when he tries to hit on the baseline in particular, which is where he usually winds up, using no glass, he would miss. He used a lot of glass tonight. I just think that's really interesting. I think that honestly maybe is as simple as it is for Gordon. Is like if he uses glass, he's going to be a much more effective interior scorer. 10 of 12 for Gordon, 28 points, 9 boards, 4 assists, 2 blocks, one of them an absolutely spectacular one. Gordon was terrific. Gordon was phenomenal. Gordon did everything he could to try and help this team win tonight. It was a phenomenal performance. Will Barton was really good. 23 points for Barton on 9 of 16 shooting, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. He was great. Austin Rivers gave them good minutes. He was really good for them. 2 threes for Austin, which they badly, badly need. The worst players, I think, from Thursday, it was obviously Jeff Green, who had like a trillion, which is really bad. Jeff was bad in both games. Like here's a lot of it. As much as people are frustrated with both of the Greens, but especially Jeff, Jeff shouldn't be starting. Jeff should not be in like honestly the top 7 rotation, and Jeff is starting these games, right? Like this is not where Jeff Green is at in his career. This is not 26-year-old bouncy Jeff Green. This isn't even like Boston Jeff Green. I was listening to the DMVR postgame and Brendan, who made like a ton of quotes. After you listen to this, go listen to that DMVR postgame if you haven't. And like obviously listen to D-Line and Adam, because D-Line's hilarious and Adam is his usual wonderful self. But I thought Brendan was making like really terrific points on that postgame show. And particularly like he was talking about just about like where like how they were getting nothing. A lot of this I do genuinely think is Jeff Green should not be put in the position that he's been put into, and he has been because there aren't alternatives because of how injured they are. They can't even go away from it, right? They don't have enough small forwards. So Aaron Gordon was great though. Really noble effort. Fantastic. Okay. Facu Campazzo was great. He hit his threes, which is a big determining factor. Like, it's not that Facu Campazzo's effort and energy is ever lacking, because it never is. Like, he's always trying. He had 2 steals, but he was 5 of 9 from the field, 4 of 5 from 3. Anytime that Facu hits more than 2 threes, it's like absolute money. Like that is absolutely extra. He was not why they lost. He was not why the bench unit struggled. The -2 was not on him. Facu Campazzo was good. I am required to note that Zach LaVine shot over him every single chance that he got. Like, he just rose up and fired over Campazzo. Now, the Nuggets rotations weren't always great. Monte Morris, I thought, struggled a lot. Like I mentioned, PJ Dozier, I thought was off defensively. Their rotations were just not great the last 2 games. Like, their defense was just not good enough the last 2 games. It's more understandable versus the Bulls because the Bulls get you in rotation with how they're able to apply pressure with their guards and on the back-to-back and shorthanded, but they needed to be better. But when they did get Campazzo out in rotation, guys did fire over him. But I'll just say this, like, Campazzo was doing everything possible, and when he's hitting those threes, it's such a lift to the team. And Campazzo made his shots tonight, and that was a big bonus. So, like, the energy was good. The effort was good. He was great. Bones Highland, here's a number I actually want to talk about with Bones from the Friday game. So he was 2 of 7 from the field. 6 points on 7 shots is bad, right? That's not good. 3 fouls is not good. Here's a bigger one. 0 assists. Bones is having a little bit harder time than he did early in the season making reads for whatever reason. And guys are missing shots that he's dishing. That's part of it for sure. But he's also over dribbling. He over dribbled a lot tonight. He went hot sauce like a little bit too much tonight and tried to do too much and was just trying to break down the defense one-on-one instead of trusting the offense and using screens. Like, a lot of this gets really fundamentally into like one of the things that I think NBA guards learn. You don't have to like break guys down off the dribble. You just call for a screen and you're going to get separation. That's what you do. Just call for the screen. And he didn't do that. And he was really rough. The problem with the 0 assist is if he's not getting assists and he is so tiny that he gets muscled on defense because he's so slight, not even tiny, just slight, then Bones turns back into what MPJ was basically his rookie season. Bones is I think, a smarter player. He has higher basketball IQ and better feel for the game than MPJ did. But that season, I said this a lot. If MPJ is not hitting his jumpers, what's he giving you? And if Bones isn't assisting and he's missing shots, what's he giving you? Right? Like, what's he providing? And that's the problem. He's got to play because he's got the capability and skill, but he's got to give you more. I think Monte Morris, I think his struggles have been a little over-exaggerated. I thought he was really good in the homestand. I thought he was really good versus Dallas. I thought that tonight he was very bad. The back-to-back definitely hit him. He was exhausted. I mean, look, Monte only played 28 minutes versus 37 for Gordon and 33 for Barton, but Monte just looked dead tired. He really did. So the bench winds up a negative, but the starters wind up a negative as well. Like, Aaron Gordon's a -7. He played awesome. They just couldn't get the stops necessary, in part because I will say this, like, The Bulls may not have brought their A game, but they brought something pretty close to it. I would say B minus or B plus A minus for what the Bulls can do while they're without Vucevic. This was pretty close to it. Like Levine was spectacular, 36 points, 14 and 24 shooting, like fadeaways and all sorts of things. I mean, it was nuts. Lonzo Ball had a quiet night, but still kind of like filled in. Caruso played some absolutely incredible defense. I will say, like, everyone went bonkers over Caruso's stuff. He was 1 of 8 and a -7. So like Caruso's impact, he had the great possession on Monte Morris, who again had a miserable night. But like the Nuggets won the Caruso minutes. That was actually okay. They lost the Zach LaVine minutes by 9, and Derrick Jones Jr., they really found something. So PJ Dozier kind of talked about this post game that their switches, they had to figure it out, and that they really gave them problems. They hadn't played a team that played as small as the Bulls did tonight. And the Bulls were very smart because, all right, so there's no Jokic. So they don't play at the level of we always talk about this, right? Or I always talk about this, playing at the level of the screen, applying pressure on the ball handler. The Nuggets instead are like, okay, we don't have Jokic, so we can switch tonight. We're just gonna switch everything. And we're gonna play zone. And they played a lot of zone, and it worked for the most part. But the problem was when you switch, the best way to counter the switch is to slip the screen. And Javonte Green, who was only 1 of 3, but a +20 because he put a lot of pressure at the rim, and Derrick Jones Jr., who was a +9 and went for 16 points and 8 boards, both of them were slipping screens, getting on the interior, and getting dunks off of it. Meanwhile, offensive rebounds was something that Malone mentioned. They had 17 offensive rebounds. A lot of these, I will say, were like crazy possessions. Just like wild, weird bounces. And the Nuggets were so caught up in trying to keep their rotations that they weren't paying attention to, I got to get the ball, because they were trying to locate their man. And they had key breakdowns there. Monte Morris, I think, was really rough on that end, in particular tonight. So, look, a valiant effort. No Jokic. If they had Jokic, they win this game. I just feel confident in that. You can't really expect them to win games without Jokic. They won the one versus the Pacers. This is why I often say, you can win the first one. It's that second one after the emotional letdown kind of occurs that it's rough. The Nuggets got to get healthy, and the road trip's going to be intense. But this team is still in a pretty good shape. I'll talk more about that and why I'm not so worried about the Nuggets as some folks are when we come back on Locked On. But first, I want to say about Built Bar. Thanksgiving's around the corner. You're going to have family in your house. Hopefully everybody's vaccinated and boosted and all those types of things, and we're all being safe. But if you're going to have guests over, then you're going to want snacks around. And while people are waiting for the delicious meal I'm sure that you or your loved ones are preparing, you want them to be able to have some sort of healthy treat, and Built Bar is the way to go. Delicious, nutritious, only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, plenty of protein. So get something that's low calorie, low carb, low fat, and high protein, covered in 100% real chocolate. Share some at your family gatherings. New surprises all month at Built.com. Limited time flavors arriving at Built.com regularly. Check the site often, including their Black Friday sale. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We'll be right back on Locked On. Final segment here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making us part of your weekend. Really appreciate it. Matt Moore wrapping up with you on a late Friday night. I want to tell you about Locked On Bets. Make sure to check out the Locked On Bets podcast with Lee Sterling and your boy Q. They are breaking down all sorts of great bets for you to track. It's the best betting podcast on the Locked On network. Check out Locked On Bets. All right, so a couple of conversations have been happening concurrently that I wanted to kind of address in the Nuggets zeitgeist. So the first is the shooting problem. Ryan Blackburn has some really good information about this. If you're not listening, if you're not subscribed, go subscribe to Pickaxe and Roll, Ryan's podcast, because Ryan's a really smart dude and cares a lot about the Nuggets, and you'll get smarter there. So there's been a lot of conversation about the Nuggets. Here's the basic thing. I know people are frustrated that they're missing threes. You have to, if you're going to convince me that there's a shooting problem, you're going to have to show me that they're taking bad shots that they can't hit over the course of their career as an NBA player. Monte Morris was shot 39% from 3 last season. Like, that's what he did. He shot 39% from 3 last season. JaMychal Green shot 40% from 3 last season. Um, you know, Austin Rivers, 38% from three last season. Even Facu Campazzo, 35% from three last season, right? So we have like careers of these guys going back more than the 15 games that they've played so far. So when I look at the numbers and I see that Monte Morris is shooting 28% from three this season, that's going to go up. Monte doesn't take bad shots. That's never been Monte's identity. Monte's not a chucking bad shooter. He's a low usage, high efficiency player that takes good shots and knocks them down at a pretty high rate. Austin Rivers, 26%. I get it. Austin Rivers is on the very edge of the rotation. Austin Rivers is not a 26% shooter in the NBA. He may not be a 40% shooter in the NBA, but even if he is just a 33 to 35% shooter in the NBA, those minutes improve dramatically when he's making those shots. Jeff Green's not a 20% shooter, and JaMychal Green is not a 19% shooter from three-point range. Like, we have careers of these guys. So all I am saying is, if you think that they're not getting good looks, which I don't think the bench is because they don't create enough gravity, because I think they need a roll man. Like, I've said this consistently. I've said they need a backup center since the start of training camp, is that they need a backup center to provide gravity at the rim, to force the defenders to collapse, whether tagging or just trying to help down and get a block, and then kick out and get paint threes. They need that very badly. They can't do that right now because their guards, PJ Dozier is still not good enough at attacking the rim as he needs to be, and Facu Campazzo flat out cannot. So their bench unit really can't attack. Like, Bones Highland is the best one at it. And Bones can't get past multiple layers of defense and is still learning the reads. They need like a rim threat to draw guys. Nobody's scared of JaMychal Green or Jeff Green on the roll, which they shouldn't be. So I don't think that they need better shooters. I think that they need some sort of threat to open those things up. But I also think that over the course of the season, those guys will shoot better. And when they shoot better, the offense will look better. I don't think the Nuggets are going to struggle offensively. I think by the end of the year, they'll be a top 10 offense again. I think it's going to be rough. Look, Adam and I tried to prepare everybody for this. Like, we talked about how this is probably going to be rough in the beginning. They're still trying to get used to things. They're very shorthanded. And that's before we get into the MPJ stuff. You know, like, you don't even expect the MPJ stuff. A normal MPJ wins this game tonight, even without Jokic. Like, they're missing so much right now. So my biggest thing is I'm not telling you to accept losses. Okay. If the Nuggets fall, let's say, because I always want to be specific with these things. If the Nuggets fall 3 games under 500, that's trouble. That's when I'll be like, okay, things are bad and they need to pull out of this. But until they get to that point, I think they're okay. So as an example, right? Like, if we look at where the league is after those 2 games on Thursday and Friday, if we look at the standings, the Nuggets are still in the 5th spot. The Clippers lost to the New Orleans Pelicans on Friday night. The Dallas Mavericks lost again to the Suns. So the Nuggets are a half game back of the Mavericks and 1 game back of the Jazz for the 3 seed. They haven't really lost any ground. Additionally, if you want them to be a 50-win team, right, that's 32 losses on the season, right? 50 and 32. So they've got now 26 losses left in order to share across the 67 remaining games. They have all those games left that they can spare. Okay. They have 26 losses that they can lose out of the remaining 67 games. That's doable. That's very doable. Like, this team is not off track for winning 50 games. They're fine. They're going to be okay. I'm not saying the biggest difference here is, like, I'm not saying that you have to think that, like, they're great right now. They're not. This is not a great team right now. Do you want them to be great in November? Or do you want them to be great in April? And if you say, why can't they be both, Matt? No one is. No one's great in November and are the same team in April. Not even the Warriors. The Golden State Warriors in 2016 they started off with that incredible winning streak to start the season. And by the end of it, they were dragging. Like, they were dragging to get to 73 wins. And they did it, but it took a lot out of them, which they would admit, and was part of the reason probably why they didn't win the title. You know, they struggled in the first round They struggled in the second round versus the Blazers. They struggled versus the Blazers. No one struggled versus the Blazers in the playoffs. And they really could have lost honestly, they could have lost in the 2016 conference finals too. But then they got to the finals and gave up the 3-1 collapse. So my point here is we can admit, like, the Nuggets are not a good shooting team. They're shooting terribly. They need to shoot better. I don't know how. I don't know how you shoot better if you're that's something that's either you create better shots or you get better personnel. And the Nuggets are creating good looks. Statistically, they are creating good looks, and it checks out on eye test too. And they have shooters that aren't cracked, knocked down Klay Thompson, but they're fine enough. Like, they don't have to be awesome. They just have to be not this bad. But they got to shoot better, right? You could say their effort versus the Sixers was unacceptable. You'd be right. They know it. That's why they played harder on Friday. And you could say, like, they're not as good as I want them to be. Okay? But what you can't be is, like, go from there to something's got to change. Something does not have to change with the Denver Nuggets. Would a bench big help? Yeah. Would a bench shooter help? Yeah. Would JaMychal Green or Jeff Green literally doing anything help? Yeah. Would, Facu Campazzo not being a minus on most nights? Yeah. He's good tonight. Lots of things would help. They got to get things in sync. If they got the Aaron Gordon game on Friday, on Thursday, they win the Thursday game. If they got Nikola Jokic playing on Friday, they win the Friday game. We'll see how they respond to the challenge of this first 3-game losing streak. I have a feeling that we're going to get a pretty great effort in their next game. And we'll have all that covered for you on Locked On Nuggets. As always, give me your thoughts on Twitter at Locked On Nuggets. You can hit me up at HP Basketball. Make sure to check out Adam's work at thednvr.com. Check out the YouTube version of this show. It's a lot of fun. And rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend. We'll see you guys again on Monday for another edition of Locked On Nuggets.